and a good Friday afternoon to all of you. The Chattering Magpie here, ready for yet another read along with the rest of the gang. Hey gang, how are you doing today?
It's Friday.
Hey. Right. Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday, you guys. I don't know about you guys, but this has been a very, very busy week for me. And I'm just delighted that we're finally getting to the weekend and to another read-along. It is Friday read-along, and those are particularly fun for me just because they're Friday and they're read-along, so win-win. All of those things are fun for me. But yeah, we're slowly but surely making our way to the end of Anne. I think Anne has 38 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. 38. So we're 8 chapters before the conclusion of this book. That's 4 sessions, including this one. I think 1, 2, 3, maybe 3.5. 3, 1.
Sounds like we'll.
All good things must come to an end.
3.
Sounds like we'll finish on the summer solstice then.
Oh wow! Really? What a great time. That's a very good time. Oh man, a auspicious date.
Indeed.
I'm trying to bring out my grown-up girl vocabulary since I'm talking to the great Teal. By the way, speaking of greatness and Teal, I'm looking at the chat, and Teal was the very first one who said hello. And you also offered a little haiku for everybody on this bright Friday that by rights belongs to summer. Would you care to read your haiku?
A bluebird takes flight. Soft wind brushing through feathers. Sky wide as her smile.
Aww, that's so pretty. Yay, I love it. I love haikus because they're nice and sweet and they just evoke the right amount of imagery and emotion. Very nicely done, yes.
Magpie is kind of like our elementary school teacher who she's trying to be very supportive and encourage us to continue doing these creative things.
Wait. I have a feeling though that you don't mean that in the right way, because a lot of times elementary school teachers are like
very facetious and rude to you.
Very, very not condescending, but they're like, "Aw, you drew a circle! Yay!" I am not like
exactly.
That. No, it's not that case. You guys, I could not be able to write a haiku to save my life, and I have often been like very expressive of my admiration for people that are, wordsmiths. I wish I could be so good at wording things, but it's hard. That's why my sincere appreciation has nothing to do with being like, "Aw, you drew a circle. Good for you, buddy." No.
For the Chattering Magpie, words are hard.
They're hard. Why can't we just express ourselves in cave drawings? Let's see. Oh, look who else is in the chat. Fuji Petals floating in the river says, "May I pray for a blessing in appreciation of this serendipitous meeting ordained." It's not yet summer. Fuji Petals floating in the river. What about Voltraine? You're gonna have displeased Voltraine.
Didn't you just say it was summer?
It's not summer.
Well, you just said it was.
It's not. I said today belongs to summer because it's really hot where I am.
But yes, whether you want to do it by Voltraine or by, Light and Shaft, go ahead. Please. You may. I don't know. I think that more people should appreciate spring, since I am a spring baby. I love spring and I don't want it to end. But lo and behold, time flows by.
I very much prefer spring because with summer we get the heat and humidity, and I don't want to be in it at all.
Yeah, neither do I. Spring and fall are my favorite seasons. So, except fall here, we get a lot of wind and a lot of wildfires, and that's never fun. So the sweet spot for weather is spring. Yes. Fuji Petals Floating in the River says it's based on seasons, not months. It will hit 33.3 this weekend. Oh, where are you at, Fuji? That is hot, right? Is that, well, Celsius? Hold on. 33.3.
We use freedom units here.
Celsius
Not that
to
common
Fahrenheit.
gobbledygook.
Oh, dang. That is 91.94 Fahrenheit. Yo, Fuji, keep cool. Drink lots of water and the necessary, some electrolytes. Just keep cool. Go to the beach if you can, but if not, just go somewhere cool. Yeah. So, Pacific Northwest. You're in the Pacific Northwest? Wow, is it gonna be that hot? You were saying that it was hot, but
In some places.
whoa.
Are you in British Columbia?
That is hot. For British Columbia or the Northwest or Washington or whatnot, that's pretty hot. Even for California, that's really hot. Well, yeah, stay cool, my friend. Blast the AC. By the way, Teal, how prevalent is having ACs over there? I don't think you guys use
Not
a lot of
common
AC
at
right?
all. At least
Yeah.
on my side of the mountains, but
Yeah, I should think so. Oddly enough, we don't have, like in my city, we don't have the apartments and houses. Many of them that were built older, they don't have AC units built in. So now you have to get central air. So now you have to get either those units or fans or whatnot, or because it used to be cooler, I think, in the summers. Now it's getting kind of hotter, so a lot of people are complaining about it. I don't know. I remember as a kid, I never experienced a day of sweltering heat here ever, and it was at least some phenomena. Anyway, all right, so we're here to read Anne of Green Gables, chapter 31 and 32. And today reading we have the following people, you guys. We have Anne, going to be read by Teal. Marilla's going to be read by Magpie. The Doctor's going to be read by Patrick. Patrick will also read Matthew and Moody, by the way. Diana is going to be read by Magpie, and Rachel is going to be read by Teal. And highlights brought to you by Hirami and Teal. Thank you, guys. All right, so how about we get started with chapter 31, everybody. Chapter 31, Where the Brook and River Meet. Anne had her good summer and enjoyed it wholeheartedly. She and Diana fairly lived outdoors, reveling in all the delights that Lover's Lane and the Dreads Bubble and Willowmere and Victoria Island afforded. Marilla offered no objections to Anne's gypsyings. The Spenceville doctor who had come the night Minnie May had the croup met Anne at the house of a patient one afternoon early in the vacation, looked her over sharply, screwed up his mouth, shook his head, and sent a message to Marilla Cuthbert by another person. It was,
Keep that red-headed girl of yours in the open air all summer and don't let her read books until she gets more spring in her step.
This message frightened Marilla wholesomely. She read Anne's death warrant by consumption in it unless it was scrupulously obeyed. As a result, Anne had the golden summer of her life as far as freedom and frolic went. She walked, rode, berried, and dreamed to her heart's content. And when September came, she was bright-eyed and alert, with a step that would have satisfied the Spencervale doctor and a heart full of ambition and zest once more.
I feel just like studying with might and main,
she declared as she brought her books down from the attic.
Oh, you good old friends. I'm glad to see your honest faces once more. Yes, even you, Geometry. I've had a perfectly beautiful summer, Marilla, and now I'm rejoicing as a strong man to run a race, as Mr. Allen said last Sunday. Doesn't Mr. Allen preach magnificent sermons? Mrs. Lynde says he's improving every day, and the first thing we know, some city church will gobble him up, and then we'll be left and have to turn to and break in another green preacher. But I don't see the use of meeting trouble halfway. Do you, Marilla? I think it would be better just to enjoy Mr. Allen while we have him. If I were a man, I think I'd be a minister. They can have such an influence for good if their theology is sound. And it must be thrilling to preach splendid sermons and stir your hearers' hearts. Why can't women be ministers, Marilla? I asked Mrs. Lynde, and she said she was shocked and said it would be a scandalous thing. She said there might be female ministers in the States, and she believed there was. But thank goodness we hadn't got to that stage in Canada yet, and she hoped we never would. But I don't see why. I think women would make splendid ministers. When there is a social to be got up or a church tea or anything else to raise money, the women have to turn to and do the work. I'm sure Mrs. Lynde can pray every bit as well as Superintendent Bell, and I've no doubt she could preach too, with a little practice.
Yes, I believe she could, said Marilla dryly. She does plenty of unofficial preaching as it is. Nobody has much of a chance to go wrong in Avonlea with Rachel to oversee them.
Marilla,
said Anne in a burst of confidence.
I want to tell you something and ask you what you think about it. It has worried me terribly, on Sunday afternoons, that is, when I think specially about such matters. I do really want to be good, and when I'm with you or Mrs. Allen or Miss Stacy, I want it more than ever, and I want to do just what would please you and what you would approve of. But mostly when I'm with Mrs. Lynde, I feel desperately wicked, and as if I wanted to go and do the very thing she tells me I oughtn't to do. I feel irresistibly tempted to do it. Now, what do you think is the reason I feel like that? Do you think it's because I'm really bad and unregenerate?
Marilla looked dubious for a moment. Then she laughed. If you are, I guess I am too, Anne, for Rachel often has that very effect on me. I sometimes think she'd have more of an influence for good, as you say yourself, if she didn't keep nagging people to do right. There should have been a special commandment against nagging. But there, I shouldn't talk so. Rachel is a good Christian woman, and she means well. There isn't a kinder soul in Avonlea, and she never shirks her share of work.
I'm very glad you feel the same,
said Anne decidedly.
It's so encouraging. I shan't worry so much over that after this. But I dare say there'll be other things to worry me. They keep coming up new all the time. Things to perplex you, you know. You settle one question and there's another right after. There's so many things to be thought over and decided when you're beginning to grow up. Keeps me busy all the time thinking them over and deciding what is right. It's a serious thing to grow up, isn't it, Marilla? But when I have such good friends as you and Matthew and Mrs. Allen and Miss Stacy, I ought to grow up successfully. And I'm sure it will be my own fault if I don't. I feel it's a great responsibility because I've only the one chance. If I don't grow up right, I can't go back and begin over again. I've grown 2 inches this summer, Marilla. Mr. Gillis measured me at Ruby's party. I'm so glad you made my new dresses longer. That dark green one is so pretty, and it was sweet of you to put on the flounce. Of course, I know it wasn't really necessary, but flounces are so stylish this fall, and Josie Pye has flounces on all her dresses. I know I'll be able to study better because of mine. I shall have such a comfortable feeling deep down in my mind about that flounce.
It's worth something to have that, admitted Marilla. Miss Stacy came back to Avonlea School and found all her pupils eager for work once more. Especially did the Queen's class gird up their loins for the fray, for at the end of the coming year, dimly shadowing their pathway already, loomed up that fateful thing known as the entrance, at the thought of which one and all felt their hearts sink into their very shoes. Suppose it did not pass? That thought was doomed to haunt Anne through the waking hours of that winter. Sunday afternoons inclusive, to the almost entire exclusion of moral and theological problems. When Anne had bad dreams, She found herself staring miserably at past lists of the entrance exam, where Gilbert Blythe's name was blazoned at the top, and in which hers did not appear at all. But it was a jolly, busy, happy, swift-flying winter. Schoolwork was as interesting, class rivalry as absorbing as of yore. New worlds of thought, feeling, and ambition, fresh, fascinating fields of unexplored knowledge seemed to be opening out before Anne's eager eyes. Hills heaped o'er hill, and Alps on Alps arose. Much of all this was due to Miss Stacy's tactful, careful, broad-minded guidance. She led her class to think and explore and discover for themselves, and encouraged straying from the old beaten paths to a degree that quite shocked Mrs. Lynde and the school trustees, who viewed all innovations on established methods rather dubiously. Apart from her studies, Anne expanded socially. For Marilla, mindful of the Spencervale's doctor's dictum, no longer vetoed occasional outings. The debating club flourished and gave several concerts. There were one or two parties almost verging on grown-up affairs. There were sleigh drives and skating frolics galore. Between times, Anne grew, shooting up so rapidly that Marilla was astonished one day when they were standing side by side to find the girl was taller than herself. "Why, Anne, how you've grown!" she said, almost unbelievingly. A sigh followed on the words. Marilla felt a queer regret over Anne's inches. The child she had learned to love had vanished somehow, and here was this tall, serious-eyed girl of 15, with the thoughtful brows and the proudly poised little head in her place. Marilla loved the girl as much as she had loved the child, but she was conscious of a queer, sorrowful sense of loss. And that night, when Anne had gone to prayer meeting with Diana, Marilla sat alone in the wintry twilight and indulged in the weakness of a cry. Matthew, coming in with a lantern, caught her at it and gazed at her in such consternation that Marilla had to laugh through her tears. "I was thinking about Anne," she explained. "She's got to be such a big girl, and she'll probably be away from us next winter. Oh, I'll miss her terrible."
"She'll be able to come home often,"
comforted Matthew, to whom Anne was yet and always would be the little eager girl he had brought home from Bright River on that June evening 4 years ago.
"The branch railroad will be built to Carmody by that time."
"It won't be the same thing as having her here all the time," sighed Marilla gloomily, determined to enjoy her luxury of grief uncomforted. "But there, man can't understand these things." There were other changes in Anne, no less real than the physical change. For one thing, she became much quieter. Perhaps she thought all the more and dreamed as much as ever, but she certainly talked less. Marilla noticed and commented on this also. "You don't chatter half as much as you used to, Anne, nor use half as many big words. What has come over you?" Anne colored and laughed a little as she dropped her book and looked on dreamily out the window, where big fat red buds were bursting out on the creeper in response to the lure of the spring sunshine.
I don't know. I don't want to talk as much,"
she said, denting her chin thoughtfully with her forefinger.
"It's nicer to think dear, pretty thoughts and keep them in one's heart, like treasures. I don't like to have them laughed at or wondered over. And somehow I don't want to use big words anymore. It's almost a pity, isn't it? Now that I'm really growing big enough to say them, if I did want to. It's fun to be almost grown up in some ways. It's not the kind of fun I expected, Marilla. There's so much to learn and do and think that there isn't time for big words. Besides, Miss Stacy says the short ones are much stronger and better. She makes us write all our essays as simply as possible. It was hard at first. I was so used to crowding in all the fine, big words I could think of. and I thought of any number of them. But I've got used to it now, and I see it's so much better.
What has become of your story club? I haven't heard you speak of it for a long time.
The story club isn't in existence any longer. We hadn't time for it. And anyhow, I think we had got tired of it. It was silly to be writing about love and murder and elopements and mysteries. Miss Stacy sometimes has us write a story for training and composition, but she won't let us write anything but what might happen in Avonlea in our own lives. And she criticizes it very sharply and makes us criticize our own, too. I never thought my compositions had so many faults until I began to look for them myself. I felt so ashamed I wanted to give up altogether, but Miss Stacy said I could learn to write well if only I trained myself to be my own severest critic. And so I am trying to.
You've only 2 more months before the entrance. Do you think you'll be able to get through? Anne shivered.
I don't know. Sometimes I think I'll be all right, and then I get horribly afraid. We've studied hard, and Miss Stacy has drilled us thoroughly, but we mayn't get through for all that. We've each got a stumbling block. Mine is geometry, of course, and Jane's is Latin. Ruby and Charlie's is algebra, and Josie's is arithmetic. Moody Spurgeon says he feels it in his bones that he's going to fail in English history. Miss Stacy is going to give us examinations in June, just as hard as we'll have at the entrance, and she'll mark us just as strictly, so we'll have some idea. I wish it was all over, Marilla. It haunts me. Sometimes I wake up in the night and wonder what I'll do if I don't pass.
Why, go to school next year and try again, said Marilla unconcernedly.
Oh, I don't believe I'd have the heart for it. It would be such a disgrace to fail, especially if the others passed. And I get so nervous in an examination that I'm likely to make a mess of it. I wish I had nerves like Jane Andrews. Nothing rattles her.
Anne sighed, and dragging her eyes from the witcheries of the spring world, the beckoning day of breeze and blue, and the green things upspringing in the garden, buried herself resolutely in her book. There would be other springs, but if she did not succeed in passing the entrance, Anne felt convinced that she would never recover sufficiently to enjoy them. End of chapter. Chapter 32. The pass list is out. With the end of June came the close of the term, and the close of Miss Stacy's rule in Avonlea school. Anne and Diana walked home that evening feeling very sober indeed. Red eyes and damp handkerchiefs bore convincing testimony to the fact that Miss Stacy's farewell words must have been quite as touching as Mr. Phillips's had been under similar circumstances 3 years before. Diana looked back at the schoolhouse from the foot of the spruce hill and sighed deeply. "It does seem as if it was the end of everything, doesn't it?" she said dismally.
You oughtn't to feel half as badly as I do,
said Anne, hunting vainly for a dry spot on her handkerchief.
You'll be back again next winter, but I suppose I've left the dear old school forever. If I have good luck, that is.
It won't be the same. Miss Stacy won't be there, nor you, nor Jane, nor Ruby, probably. I shall have to sit all alone, for I couldn't bear to have another deskmate after you. Oh, we have had such jolly times, haven't we, Anne? It's dreadful to think they're all over." 2 big tears rolled down by Diana's nose.
If you would stop crying, I could.
Said Anne imploringly.
Just as soon as I put away my hanky, I see you brimming up, and that starts me off again. As Mrs. Lynde says, if you can't be as cheerful as you can. After all, I dare say I'll be back next year. This is one of the times I know I'm not going to pass. They're getting alarmingly frequent.
Why? You came out splendidly in the exams Miss Stacy gave.
Yes, but those exams didn't make me nervous. When I think of the real thing, you can't imagine what a horrid, cold, fluttery feeling comes round my heart. And then my number is 13, and Josie Pye says it's so unlucky. I'm not superstitious, and I know it can make no difference. But still, I wish it wasn't 13.
Oh, I do wish I was going in with you. Wouldn't we have had a perfectly elegant time? But I suppose you'll have to cram in the evenings.
No, Miss Stacy has made us promise not to open a book at all. She says that it would only tire and confuse us, and we are to go out walking and not think about the exams at all, and to go to bed early. It's good advice, but I suspect it will be hard to follow. Good advice is apt to be, I think. Prissy Andrews told me that she had sat up half the night every night of her entrance week and crammed for dear life. And I had determined to sit up at least as long as she did. It was so kind of your Aunt Josephine to ask me to stay at Beechwood while I'm in town.
You'll write to me while you're in, won't you?
I'll write Tuesday night and I'll tell you how the first day goes,
Promised Anne. I'll be haunting the post office Wednesday, vowed Diana. Anne went to town the following Monday, and on Wednesday, Diana haunted the post office as agreed, and got her letter.
Dearest Diana,
Wrote Anne.
Here it is Tuesday night, and I'm writing this in the library at Beechwood. Last night I was horribly lonesome all alone in my room, and I wish so much you were with me. I couldn't cram because I'd promised Miss Stacy not to, but it was as hard to keep from opening my history as it used to be to keep from reading a story before my lessons were learned. This morning, Miss Stacy came for me, and we went to the academy, calling for Jane and Ruby and Josie on our way. Ruby asked me to feel her hands, and they were as cold as ice. Josie said I looked as if I hadn't slept a wink, and she didn't believe I was strong enough to stand the grind of the teacher's course, even if I did get through. There are times and seasons even yet when I don't feel that I've made any great headway in learning to like Josie Pye. When we reached the academy, there were scores of students there from all over the island. The first person we saw was Moody Spurgeon sitting on the steps and muttering away to himself. Jane asked him what on earth he was doing, and he said he was repeating the multiplication table over and over to steady his nerves and for pity's sake not to interrupt him, because if he stopped for a moment, he got frightened and forgot everything he ever knew. But the multiplication table kept all his facts firmly in their proper place. When we were assigned to our rooms, Miss Stacy had to leave us. Jane and I sat together, and Jane was so composed that I envied her. No need of the multiplication table for good, steady, sensible Jane. I wondered if I looked as I felt, and if they could hear my heart thumping clear across the room. Then a man came in and began distributing the English examination sheets. My hands grew cold then, and my head fairly whirled around as I picked it up. Just one awful moment. Diana, I felt exactly as I did 4 years ago when I asked Marilla if I might stay at Green Gables. And then everything cleared up in my mind, and my heart began beating again. I forgot to say that it had stopped altogether, for I knew I could do something with that paper anyhow. At noon, we went home for dinner, and then back again for history in the afternoon. The history was pretty hard paper, and I got dreadfully mixed up in the dates. Still, I think I did fairly well today. But oh, Diana, tomorrow the geometry exam comes off, and when I think of it, it takes every bit of determination I possess to keep from opening my Euclid. If I thought the multiplication table would help me any, I would recite it from now till tomorrow morning. I went down to see the other girls this evening. On my way, I met Moody Spurgeon wandering distractedly around. He said he knew he had failed in history, and he was born to be a disappointment to his parents, and he was going home on the morning train. And it would be easier to be a carpenter than a minister anyhow. I cheered him up and persuaded him to stay until the end because it would be unfair to Miss Stacy if he didn't. Sometimes I have wished I was born a boy, but when I see Moody Spurgeon, I'm always glad I'm a girl and not his sister. Ruby was in hysterics when I reached their boarding house. She had just discovered a fearful mistake she had made in her English paper. When she recovered, we went uptown and had an ice cream. How we wished you had been with us. Oh, Diana, if only the geometry examination were over. But there, as Mrs. Lynde would say, the sun will go on rising and setting whether I fail in geometry or not. That is true, but not especially comforting. I think I'd rather it didn't go on if I failed. Yours devotedly, Anne.
The geometry examination and all the others were over in due time, and Anne arrived home on Friday evening, rather tired, but with an air of chastened triumph about her. Diana was over at Green Gables when she arrived, and they met as if they had been parted for years. "Oh, you old darling, it's perfectly splendid to see you back again. It seems like an age since you went to town. And oh, Anne, how did you get along?"
Pretty well, I think, in everything but the geometry. I don't know whether I passed in it or not, and I have a creepy, crawly presentiment that I didn't. Oh, how good it is to be back. Green Gables is the dearest, loveliest spot in the world.
"How did the others do?"
The girls say they know they didn't pass, but I think they did pretty well. Josie says that geometry was so easy a child of 10 could do it. Moody Spurgeon thinks he failed in history, and Charlie says he failed in algebra, but we don't really know anything about it and won't until the pass list is out. That won't be for a fortnight. Fancy living a fortnight in such suspense. I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up until it is over.
Diana knew it would be useless to ask how Gilbert Blythe had fared, so she merely said, "Oh, you'll pass all right. Don't worry."
I'd rather not pass at all than not come out pretty well up the list.
Flashed Anne, by which she meant, and Diana knew she meant, that success would be incomplete and bitter if she did not come out ahead of Gilbert Blythe. With this end in view, Anne had strained every nerve during the examinations. So had Gilbert. They had met and passed each other on the street a dozen times without any sign of recognition, and every time Anne had held her head a little higher and wished a little more earnestly that she had made friends with Gilbert when he'd asked her, and vowed a little more determinedly to surpass him in the examination. She knew that all Avonlea Jr. was wondering which would come out first. She even knew that Jimmy Glover and Ned Wright had a bet on the question, and that Josie Pye had said there was no doubt in the world that Gilbert would be first. And she felt that her humiliation would be unbearable if she failed. But she had another and nobler motive for wishing to do well. She wanted to pass high for the sake of Matthew and Marilla, especially Matthew. Matthew had declared to her his conviction that she would beat the whole island. That, Anne felt, was something it would be foolish to hope for even in her wildest dreams. But she did hope fervently that she would be among the first 10 at least, so that she might see Matthew's kindly brown eyes gleam with pride in her achievement. That, she felt, would be a sweet reward indeed for all her hard work and patient grubbing among unimaginative equations and conjugations. At the end of the fortnight, Anne took to haunting the post office also, in the distracted company of Jane, Ruby, and Josie, opening the Charlatan dailies and shaking hands with cold, sink-away feelings as bad as any experienced during the entrance week. Charlie and Gilbert were not above doing this too, but Moody Spurgeon stayed resolutely away.
I haven't got the grit to go there and look at a paper in cold blood.
He told Anne.
I'm just going to wait until someday somebody comes and tells me suddenly whether I've passed or not.
When 3 weeks had gone by without the pass list appearing, Anne began to feel that she really couldn't stand the strain much longer. Her appetite failed, and her interest in Avonlea doings languished. Mrs. Lynde wanted to know what else you could expect with a Tory superintendent of education at the head of affairs, and Matthew, noting Anne's paleness and indifference and the lagging steps that bore her home from the post office every afternoon, began seriously to wonder if he hadn't better vote Grit at the next election. But one evening the news came. Anne was sitting at her open window, for at the time for the time forgetful of the woes of examinations and the cares of the world, as she drank in the beauty of the summer dusk, sweet-scented with flower breaths from the garden window, and sibilant and rustling from the stir of the poplars. The eastern sky above the firs was flushed faintly pink from the reflection of the west, and Anne was wondering dreamily if the spirit of color looked like that, when she saw Diana come flying down through the firs, over the log bridge, and up the slope with a fluttering newspaper in her hand. Anne sprang to her feet, knowing at once what that paper contained. The pass list was out. Her head whirled and her heart beat until it hurt her. She could not move a step. It seemed an hour to her before Diana came rushing along the hall and burst into the room without even knocking, so great was her excitement. "Anne, you've passed! Passed the very first! You and Gilbert both! Your ties, but your name is first! Oh, I'm so proud!" Diana flung the paper on the table and herself on Anne's bed, utterly breathless and incapable of further speech. Anne lighted the lamp, over setting the match safe and using up half a dozen matches before her shaking hands could accomplish the task. Then she snatched up the paper. Yes, she had passed. There was her name at the very top of a list of 200. That moment was worth living for. "You did just splendidly, Anne," puffed Diana, recovering sufficiently to sit up and speak, for Anne, starry-eyed and rapt, had not uttered a word. "Father brought the paper home from Bright River not 10 minutes ago. It came out on the afternoon train, you know, and won't be here till tomorrow by mail. And when I saw the pass list, I rushed over like a wild thing. You've all passed, every one of you, Moody Spurgeon and all, although he's conditioned in history. Jane and Ruby did pretty well. They're halfway up, and so did Charlie. Josie just scraped through with 3 marks to spare. But you'll see she'll put on as many airs as if she'd led. Won't Miss Stacy be delighted? Oh, Anne, what does it feel like to see your name at the head of a pass list like that? Oh, if it were me, I know I'd go crazy with joy. I'm pretty near crazy as it is, but you're as calm and cool as a spring evening."
I'm just dazzled inside. I want to say 100 things, and I can't find words to say them in. I never dreamed of this. Yes, I did too. Just once. I let myself think once. What if I should come out first? Quakingly, you know, for it seems so vain and presumptuous to think I could lead the island. Excuse me a minute, Diana. I must run right out to the field to tell Matthew. Then we'll go up the road and tell the good news to the others.
They hurried to the hayfield below to the barn, where Matthew was coiling hay, and, as luck would have it, Mrs. Lynde was talking to Marilla at the lane fence.
Oh, Matthew, I've passed, and I'm first, or one of the first. I'm not vain, but I'm thankful.
Well, now, I always said it.
Said Matthew, gazing at the pass list delightedly.
I knew you could beat them all easy.
"You've done pretty well, I must say, Anne," said Marilla, trying to hide her extreme pride in Anne from Mrs. Rachel's critical eye. But that good soul said heartily,
I just guess she has done well, and far be it from me to be backward in saying it. You're a credit to your friends, Anne. That's what, and we're all proud of you.
That night Anne, who had wound up the delightful evening with a serious little talk with Mrs. Allen at the manse, knelt sweetly by her open window in a great sheen of moonshine and murmured a prayer of gratitude and aspiration that came straight from the heart. There was in it thankfulness for the past and reverent petition for the future, and when she slept on her white pillow, her dreams were as fair and bright and beautiful as maidenhood might desire. End of chapter.
Yay.
Aww. She passed.
Yay!
So, have we caught up yet to the anime?
No,
not yet.
no.
Not yet. That's right. There's still the Queen's, her high school.
But by the
year.
time we get to the end of the book, I'm expecting they'll be well into book 2.
Yeah, so like Theo said by the 21st, right? Before the 21st. 20th, I think. Solstice is 20th. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, by that time they'll be doing Anne of Avonlea, I think. I think it's an interesting book to adapt. I've never seen any adaptation that covers that content. Because they always just kind of skip some of that. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how many episodes they devote to that book. Some stuff happens. Some interesting developments do happen.
It's really interesting to see an anime adapt Western style school, where we're very used to them showing a Japanese style school. So I'm interested to see that.
Oh, like the schoolhouse thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I think of a Japanese style school, for some reason I always see all those like isekai academies. I'm like, wait, no. That's not how schools look like. They don't have fountains and blonde villainesses laughing at you. Anyway.
Oh yeah. like a certain father who became the villainess in his daughter's Otome game.
Oh, I didn't finish that one. I should finish it.
Oh, yes. It's so good.
Yeah, I have to finish it. I it was really good. I don't think it was on Crunchyroll, was it? I think
no, it was on High Dive.
Yeah, that's why. Because I don't have High Dive. I guess I should get it, but nah. I'll check it out somehow. All right. So I see what we were reading. We got a few peeps joining and then I think leaving. Oh my. So we had Crusher joined in saying, greetings everyone, just dropping in briefly to say have a good read and enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Crusher, for dropping in. And I think he posted some art as well. Oh,
Yep.
Liz left. And I'll show it in a little bit. Just remind me. Hope you enjoy the replay when you're able to. Also, White Rose K says, happy reading to you all. See you in the reread. All right, White Rose. Hope you enjoy the reread. These were cute chapters. What did you guys think of these 2 chapters?
I really enjoyed it. I had some thoughts about the first chapter, but I've forgotten them because we just skipped from there to start the second.
I know. I guess I shouldn't have jumped over, but it'll be okay. So the first chapter, let's see. Let's kind of go back and talk about first chapter. The first chapter was called Where the Brook and River Meet, and this is basically Anne's summer, just before her examinations. Marilla's keeping her out of doors. She doesn't want her to get consumption. Because
I thought that was hilarious. It's like the doctor knew, this girl is becoming too dour. She's getting too consumed in her books. Get her outside. Get her having fun, being a child again.
Mm-hmm.
If the doctor was like, get Anne some sun, I think if he saw me, he'd be like, time of death. Just pronounce it.
Oh no. Especially during a migraine. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
By the way, we are also thankful to have we're also grateful to have Teal here back from her ordeal. Welcome back, Teal.
Thank you.
I was going to say the same thing.
Style migraines.
Aww. Sorry, Patrick, what was it?
I was just going to say the same thing. Glad to have you back, Teal.
Thank you.
At this rate, though, you guys, I I challenge any adult to not be sleep deprived. I think that's the norm, is to be sleep deprived. It takes a concerted effort to actually go to bed at a proper time, because it's now the norm to you just stay up and do whatever until very late. You wake up feeling like crap. At least that's what I used to do. I was working.
Yeah.
That's the norm.
I mean, the right time for me is about 7 o'clock at night, because I have to be up by 3 o'clock so I can get ready for the day.
Dang. Yeah. So right now you're still within your sleeping schedule, yes? Yes.
Well, I don't have to work this weekend.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm
true.
good.
It's Friday. Huzzah, Friday. Forget about that. I think it's Wednesdays, right? Wednesday 4 o'clock sessions. That gets a little.
I try to take a nap before those sessions.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you do. That's important. So yeah, I think we all could touch a little more grass and sleep more. There was an acronym about from this health person that I think it was air, water, sunshine, nutrients, sleep, temperance. It has like all of these things that are necessary for like keeping health. And I'm like, yeah, there's like the 7 things that you have to do to keep your health. I think I can only say I fulfill like 3.
Well, there's actually some definite benefits to being out in the sun more often, because as your body metabolizes the sunlight energy, you get more vitamin D, and that helps keep you out of depression. It's part of the reason why certain areas like Washington State are prone to depressed people.
For sure.
I'm just really getting it today.
No. No.
It's true. We usually have a pretty low UV index.
That is. Well, at least you don't have like skin cancer, like in
True.
these areas around here. Now, I don't think I'm in any danger though, because if I go out, you guys, I go out in the evening or in the morning to have my little jog and whatever exercise situation. Me and the sun, we don't get along very much, but I do know though that it's good to reset your circadian rhythm. Is when you wake up within 30 minutes, this is what I try to do. Within 30 minutes of waking up is take 30 grams of protein and take a walk or something, at least 15 minutes of a walk, just so you can help your metabolism and your circadian rhythm. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. I know it sounds super simple for most people, but for me, it's like, okay, I wake up, the first 30 minutes, I'm just looking at my phone. And then I go and I do my morning ablutions and whatnot, and then I'll go and sit in my computer. And then when I get really hungry, then I'll go and... So if I don't do like a proper schedule, I will not do outdoors. So it takes discipline to be good lately. But anyway, Marilla, though, was wise enough to let Anne have her golden summer. So that's nice. Honestly, though, I would have been a little worried because I feel like there is something called the slide, the English and math slides. Like during the summer months, you can lose up to half a grade of learning. So if you don't keep that fresh, then you're going to kind of suffer. It takes about 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, to get back up to speed. But you know what? She still had a full year before her entrance examination, so I don't think she had anything to worry about. But I'm thinking, for example, when we watch animes where all the third years are preparing for the entrance exams and they're all just toiling away. I'm like, yo, yeah, I would probably I'll probably need to do that because I would forget things
There,
really quickly.
yeah. There's something to be said for taking a little break and digesting the material.
That
I
is
find
true.
sometimes when I just stop learning for a couple weeks, and like subconsciously, I start to work through it and build those neurons. So
Yeah, you gotta switch gears sometimes. Honestly, all of that cram schooling is nightmarish to me. I never had to cram school at anything. I think except maybe when I took the AP exams. That was I think the only time I had to cram or anything close to cramming. For the most part, I was just like, well, I kind of know how to take a test because it was all scantrons and blue books. I was like, well, I know how to write a good essay. So no matter what, I always knew how to write a good essay. Kind of BS my way through an essay. And then scantrons, well, you have to learn how to take tests. And after a couple of years of learning how to take standardized tests, just a test is a test. So, yeah. And
Yeah, I was one of those who never did the homework but always aced the tests, which is probably why I didn't do well in college, because, yeah, I wasn't accustomed to studying, and you kind of need to when you're taking college courses.
yeah. Well, there's different ways, like depending on your course. Some courses are more like hands-on too. So it's more like some of the exams were like, okay, so how do you go through this process or whatever. So those are also, I think, easier too than sitting down and taking just like
Hello.
scantrons. Oh look, Yukihime's with us. Hello, Yukihime.
You joined too late.
We're done. Okay, you guys, thank you for joining us. Yukihime's here, so we gotta go now. Nah, just kidding. So Yukihime, we finished reading.
You can't dismiss us yet.
chapters.
We gotta still shill your channel.
Oh yes, that's true. Let's do that for later. Yes, you guys. If you
Please now, if you like it, subscribe and like this channel and like this video and watch other videos, please.
yes, do that.
Now.
Thank you, Yukihime. Hit that join button below. Just click on it. You can check out what are some of the perks that we get here. And then, like, for example, we have... Oh, no. So, I think I posted a members-only video lately. That was fun. Anyway, just join us here. And then you can also join the Discord server, too.
Yes,
So-
please. We must have more members.
So, while we're talking about back to 31, here's another thing that struck me as very interesting. Was the talk of Anne saying about women preachers. I love how okay, Theo, maybe you thought the same thing that I did. Because I heard you kind of chuckle. What did you think about Mrs. Lynde's remarks about women preachers?
it's pretty regressive considering she's like against the Tory party and everything. I wanted to say, but I was obviously migraining out on Wednesday, that some people just don't actually have like concrete ideologies and they just sort of believe whatever sort of suits them.
That is true. We did talk about why she voted this way, but she really thinks that way, because it goes without saying here. I mean, it goes without saying. It checks out here. Like, you would think that she would also be like open to, like, you know what? Yeah, women can also do these things. We're like, I vote liberal. I think liberal. Whatever. So why not? Like, why not? Right? And also she's like, well, she said there might be female ministers in the States, and she believed there was, but thank goodness we hadn't got to that stage in Canada yet. So I'm like, okay.
And she hoped we never would. Like, oh.
Oh, wow. And then later on, she was blaming the Tory government, which is the conservative in Canada, I believe, but at this time.
Yeah, for the extra week.
Because they were being incompetent. These incompetent.
I wonder about that. Reading between the lines, I wonder, since Anne and Gilbert tied, did they have to look back over like, this can't be right? Come on, there's got to be at least a 1 point difference.
That is pretty interesting thought. Yeah.
Like, did they cheat? No, they're different enough. I don't know. It's just
they came from the same school. That could have been it too.
True.
They had to like really go through it with a fine tooth comb, and they were like, screw it. They are like exactly the same.
Right.
Miss Stacy was a very good teacher. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, all of her students that went up for the Queen's exam, they passed, even if Josie was almost failing.
And yeah, let's put a pin on the Josie. We'll go back to that.
That was the part that really entertained me. I was very happy for that.
Yeah, I was happy too, in a kind of like petty sort of way, but I don't care. I make no apologies. Josie Pye has been a thorn in my side, and I'm glad that we can finally see like quantitative evidence that she sucks. or that
it's cathartic in a way, because we have our nemesis in life as we're growing up and all that stuff, and we kind of hope for them to have that one little flaw that we can just be happy over, if not gloat over.
Yeah, and she had said some pretty mean things about Anne, like saying like, yeah, well, if I don't pass, like, I'm gonna go to school to improve myself, but orphans such as yourself, Anne, who are charity cases, you have to look after yourself. They're like, yo, Josie, that was out of line.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the anime, it has Marilla mention something about that, like, oh, don't mind that girl, she's rude. But in the book, she doesn't say anything about that.
Yeah, we don't get that, sadly. But I think Marilla also thought it, and I kind of feel like it's within her. It's within her character to just kind of like not say anything. Though I would have liked for her to like later complain with Rachel Lynde or Matthew and say blah 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 blah. That's the only thing I wish they would have done. Oh well. Either way, Josie Pye got her just desserts. She was barely, by the skin of her teeth, she made it in.
And of course, Diane is like, oh, but she'll put on airs like she passed with flying colors.
And I love how during these two chapters we have Anne giving full account, very detailed account of what every single person is doing. We have Jane, we have Ruby Gillis, we even have Moody Spurgeon, who's going to... Moody Spurgeon was a fun one in this one. But she does not mention even once what Gilbert is doing or how he's studying or anything. Not in her letters, not to Marilla, not to Diana. Just the omission is glaring. She's making it too obvious.
He who shall not be named.
Right?
So glaring that even Marilla was forced to take notice, like, come on.
Yeah, that was, I think, in the... Wait, was it both in the anime or in the book? Oh, well. So, we have Miss Stacy. She comes back. It was really interesting to see how her method is teaching, because I feel like a lot of teachers would be like very like, okay, learn this, memorize this, and this. But I kind of feel like almost there are some teachers that do a lot of okay, so some of my favorite teachers when I was growing up, professors, they kind of adopted like Socratic method. Like they would ask questions that invited you to think for yourself. They wouldn't give you the answer. So I am imagining
I love
Stacey
the
like
Socratic
that.
method. I love that method because it makes you think. It makes you internalize, and I think that settles the information more concretely in your mind.
Mm-mm. I was for a short period. I had to lead some like lessons at some point, and I got training how to do the Socratic method. I was like, oh my gosh! Like if you don't have any experience with teaching, it has like a little formula. I get not a formula, but how to do it. You have to do. It's actually harder to teach with the Socratic method than it is like just like here didactic, just give you spoon feeding you everything, right? Because you have to prepare questions and all these things. You make questions that lead to answers, which leads the people to ask the questions that you want them to answer that you were wanting them to ask at the beginning. So it's kind of really interesting. So you can see that I feel that Miss Stacy, though like Mrs. Lind and the trustees were very shocked for her methods, I was like, you know what? I would have loved to have a teacher like that, helping me out too. So yeah.
Especially when she in like the week or so before the test, she's like, don't even touch the books, don't even look at them, just go out and relax and have fun. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this method of the week before the exams. So just relax, calm down, and it's gonna be okay. You have prepared for months or years.
Yeah, I think cramming at some point, she's right. It's just becomes counterproductive.
Yeah, agree.
And I think that's a point that Teal brought up earlier. You just need time to digest. Also, in chapter 31, we have Marilla realizes that her girl Anne is grown up. She's as tall as her, or even taller. What did you guys think of this part where she's crying and Matthew finds her?
It's so sweet.
It's so cute.
I particularly like how it says here, the child she had learned to love had vanished somehow. Marilla loved the girl as much as she loved the child, but she was conscious of a queer, sorrowful sense of loss. Marilla! I know. Marilla. And as she goes and cries by herself. She indulges. I love the choice of words here. She indulges in the weakness of a cry because we know Marilla. She would never this would be too much. But no, she lets herself have this once. And it's very in character for her and for him, the little exchange she had with Matthew. What does Matthew think about Marilla crying?
Oh shoot! What was it that he thought? I forgot.
He just tells her she'll be able to come home often. They're gonna build another railroad branch, so it'll be easier for her to come. She's like, you don't understand. Of course, men wouldn't understand these things.
Oh yeah, so what I would think when I'd be watching a movie with my mom and she'd start crying over some scene, and I just look at her and laugh like, you wimp.
Aw.
No, Patrick, don't do that.
I find that I've been the one that not calls them out, calling them wimp, but every time we watch a movie, at least with my family, I never cry, and they're like, "Why aren't you crying?" I'm like, and then I'm like, "Why are you crying?" I try not to make too much fun of them because people have their own sensibilities, but it can happen. It's kind of cute. It's sibling-like.
There are commercials that can make me cry, so the feelings are intense. The music is just right. It's doing its job.
Oh, there's a popular commercial, you guys. That's from I forget if it's the adopted dog. They have Sarah McLachlan. It's like, spend all your time waiting, and then they put pictures of dogs behind cages in their kennels, and there's
Oh my God.
support this organization and adopt a dog or something like that. And I'm like, have all my money. In the arms of the angel. I don't know.
Every time I hear that song, I can't help but think of those Save the Animals commercials around Christmas time.
Yep, same. It's the same one. But yeah, I really enjoyed this little back and forth banter between Matthew and Marilla. Because it's so sibling-like. Like, you forget that they are brother and sister sometimes. And you can see this sibling-like dynamic. I like that. And another part in that chapter. I think this chapter kind of goes through growth in that summer. Chapter's called Where the Brook and River Meet. I think it's kind of like a symbolic phrase to show, or a phrase to show symbolically. Anne is no longer a child, and she's going into being a young woman. So you see that also with how Marilla asks her, like, hey, like, why don't you talk as much as before? And what does Anne say about it?
Oh, I'm older and I feel like I shouldn't talk so much and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, she says, I think she's slowly being trained by Miss Stacy to be more concise. I think she says short words are better and stronger. I don't think it's better. But it's being concise. Huh? What's up?
So I just thought of something because you mentioned about Miss Stacy training her, but she mentions that Miss Stacy teaches them to critique their own work, and I really enjoyed that because as I've been gearing up to do my own kind of commentary, I find myself, seeing flaws in certain things, like books that I've read and stuff, and you see a lot more when you actually look at things critically rather than, just enjoying it as a fan.
Yeah, that's true.
And
also, it's a good skill to be able to critique your own work. There's always something that could be improved, so being aware of that, it's like a really good skill, and not being above like getting critiqued and doing critiques, and just constantly know that there is always a better that you can do.
And Miss Stacy does a great job with this too, because she's also tempering that, because you can go too far with it. You can go so far that you just discourage yourself from ever continuing. But
that's true. That's a fine line of balance.
Yeah, yeah. If you temper your zeal in trying to see the flaws and do better, then you can find a happy middle and really do great.
Yeah, a happy middle is a very hard to achieve thing in this situation. Basically all the art schooling that I've done has implied a lot of self-critique and a lot of critique, just constantly critiquing. Of course, it's all constructive criticism, but it's actually worse. Like, that's hurtful because you agree with it. So yeah, but like being able to take critiques and stuff like that, it's like a really good skill. So I'm glad Miss Stacy is honing that skill with them.
Right. Can't grow if you don't look at yourself and your skills objectively.
Yeah, and just other people's skills. Like you can give constructive criticism without like being mean or without like intending to insult. Just actual critique is like a really great thing to do, even on other people.
I think it's especially good for Anne, because remember when she made her own story about the romantic triangle, and And all the adults seem to laugh at a certain point that she's like, wait a sec, why are you laughing? This is supposed to be tragic.
Tragical.
Yes, tragical.
I always laughed every time she used the word tragical. Like, that's not even she's making up her own words. That's not even a word.
It's not a word?
No, it's not. Tragical is not a word. It's tragic.
That's tragic.
Yeah, it's tragical. The tragical is not a word.
Yeah.
So let's see. Story club is done. No more story clubs. When they do have to write stories, they have to write something that's more true to life. So again, we have restraint, and I think
that's kind of a shame.
And I think this also echoes another character that Ella Montgomery writes a little later on is Emily of New Moon, who actually is the story of a girl who actually wants to be a writer, and we follow her entire journey. And one of the things that she had to learn was, first of all, to not use too many italics, because she used to love italics, to emphasize words. And also she had to learn the meaning of restraint. So at some point when she had to go to college, she was going to live with her aunt in the town, but the aunt was very strict, and she was like, you know what, like, if you're gonna live in my house, you better not do any of that stupid scribbling. So she was not allowed during her entire high school, which was, I think, like 2 years. I think she went there, or was it 2 or 3 years? I forget how many years she went. I think it was 2, whatever. So for years she was not allowed to write any fiction, and the most she could do was write poetry and whatever essays or whatever, but no fiction. So she had to learn how to like use her language to other purposes other than that. So I'm like, okay, so for me it's like, okay, I am a fiction writer, right? When you write fiction, you can go crazy, you can use anything and everything you want. But if I were to actually be really serious about writing it and say, like, I'm gonna publish a book, I would not be writing a book the way I would write a fanfic, because a fanfic you can just do whatever you want. But a novel is very different. It takes a different kind of discipline, I think. Unless you want people to laugh at it. What was that, Yukihime?
You're saying that, but like there are so many novels published, like, and become even bestsellers and gain like a lot of audience and money, that honestly are not that great. Like are just like, there are a lot of fan fiction that is much better. Let's just say that.
Fair
And
enough.
a lot of authors to start with fan fiction, so like,
Yeah.
there's I feel like there's a great prose in fan fiction.
Yeah.
People here included.
So I'm probably thinking of the kind of writing I want to do, because I guess I should have just kind of led with that, because the kind of writing I want to do is less of, my jam is romance, okay, as you guys already know. My jam is romance, but the kind of book I want to write is not a romance. It's actually a bio, like a kind of like a memoir inspired by true life. And it's not mine, of course. It's somebody else's. So I would like what I would be able to get away with in my fan fiction writing, I would not be able to get away with in that kind of writing, that book or whatever. Anyway, suffice it to say, Anne is growing, and a lot of the things that we knew her for, slowly being shed, including like her monologues. Like her monologues are now, they're still long. They're paragraphs, but they're not pages long. You guys, did you notice that, Teal? Didn't you have time to rest a little?
Except the letter.
Except the letter.
But yes.
But
yes.
Except for the letter. Yeah. All right. So then that was chapter 31. Chapter 32. I know, we've only just discussed the first chapter. Chapter 32, the pass list is out. Anything about this chapter that you would like to remark upon? We have Anne and Diana talking about how she's going to go do her exams. But, well, okay, hold on. Let me back up first. Miss Stacy leaves the school, right? And the girls are crying because, she's leaving school, but also they are done with school. Anne is not going back to the little school. She's just gonna take her exams. And Diana still has to do like winter, I guess. I don't know how that works out. Maybe she still has another year. I don't know how the educational system works. But either way, like they're kind of like moving on. So even Diana, she says she's not going to sit next to anybody because all her friends are going to school, to Charlottetown, to the high school there. Anyway, but Anne is going to take her exams. She spends an entire week over there and taking her exams. And where does she stay while she's taking her exams? Whose house?
Miss Josephine Barry's house.
Mm-hmm. She did. Mm-hmm. There's something here. I just found the part with Josie Pye. It's so Anne is so anxious that Josie says, I looked as if I hadn't slept a wink, and she didn't believe I was strong enough to stand the grind of the teacher's course, even if I did get through. Yo, Josie Pye! That's so mean. And Anne confesses, there are times and seasons even yet when I don't feel that I've made any great headway in learning to like Josie Pye. It's okay, I don't like her either.
I think, you know how she says like, oh, this geometry can be done by a 10-year-old. I feel like she sees Anne as a rival.
Mm-hmm.
And is kind of like all of her bluster is just envy directed at Anne.
Which I don't understand, because how can you, if you think that you're so high and mighty, high and uppity above an orphan, then why do you even bother? Like, I don't get it. Josie.
She says it, but she doesn't quite believe it, so she has to keep doing these sort of things.
Oh, poor girl.
It's very sad, yeah.
That's actually really sad. Spending so much energy in being hateful. That's so sad. Alright, anything else about this chapter that you would like to remark upon?
Kind of said most of it, actually, while we were talking about 31, like the tests and everything.
That is true. So Anne passed, her name comes first, which I don't get, because you would think that last name would be first, but no, I guess they listed it by first name. That's interesting. Okay, well, whatever. Anne passed, and not only did she pass, but she was first, along with Gilbert. I wish we could have some information about Gilbert. Why do we always have to get it, from another source? That's not fair. Oh, Anne, get off your high horse and tell us more about Gilbert and what's going on with that little punk. Okay, everybody. I think that covers all of the stuff for these two chapters. I hope that you can join us on Wednesday to continue to read some more. And if you are a member of this channel, remember that we are watching the anime over on the Discord server on Sundays at around, noon, 1 o'clock. I actually schedule them around that time, Pacific time. So do join us, you guys. And we're also watching A Sense of a Bookworm right after that. So, every so often I like to do a little rewatch of Bookworm. So I'm doing that with the gang after we watch Anne Shirley. All right. So Fuji Pedal says, praise be to Lady Roxamine. Yes. Good times ahead. All right, everybody. let's say goodbye. Again, thank you to the following people who read today. We had Teal reading Anne and Rachel, Patrick reading The Doctor and Matthew and Moody Spurgeon, and me, Magpie, reading Marilla and Diana. Highlights brought to you by Teal and Haremy. Thank you so much, you guys. Hope to see you on Wednesday. Until next time, bye-bye. Say bye-bye, gang.
Bye-bye, gang.
Bye bye.
Adios.
Bye bye.